What is going on, everybody? It is Dylan with DFS, bringing you a brand new video. Today's video going over Week 7 quarterbacks to target. If you guys are new to it, I have the key down here. It shows you kind of where I'm at with some of these quarterbacks, and this is in the beginning of the week where things are going to change. But just looking into some stats, some research, stuff like that, this is kind of where I'm at as of Wednesday in the week. Things change, injuries happen both offensively and defensively that make some of these guys either more or less playable, depending on injury statuses. But green is cash, right? And this changes, right? But just early look, this is kind of where I'm at. I'll have stackable, so usually that's wide receivers or tight ends. Value, so guys that are pretty cheap, that could produce stuff. Doesn't necessarily mean I want them in tournaments, but I do think because of their price and the matchup, there's value there. The smash plays are available for subscribers, so if you guys are interested in getting my spreadsheets that are available on Sundays for subscribers that have smash plays, click the link to our Discord. Feel free to message me on there to find out how to get the spreadsheets, bets and props, and all of that. So, and then tournament and then injury, right? So let's get into it. Jaden Daniels, 7,600, the most expensive quarterback on the slate, with a really good matchup, right? We've seen Jaden Daniels have a very solid floor, especially the last few weeks. He's just produced nothing but like 20 and above DraftKings points performances, although it's very tough on this slate. I think so far, looking at it right now, this is probably one of the better slates we've had all season, to where there are so many plays here. Quarterback, you go and look at running back, there's a lot of good plays there, and wide receiver, there are so many good plays that this week is going to be interesting. I don't think outside of, as of right now, Jaden Daniels, we're going to see a crazy amount of ownership anywhere, or at least shouldn't, unless an injury comes up. But there's so many great plays and so many good games to target. But Jaden Daniels has been solid, right? Especially for fantasy points. He's been very solid. Washington, I believe, has scored 20 plus points every game so far this season, and it leads with Jaden Daniels. He's definitely been performing above my expectations, and I think a lot of people's expectations of a rookie quarterback in a team to where they traded away Jahan Dotson, and it kind of seemed like maybe Washington was going to go a different way in try to get some more pieces in the future for Jaden Daniels. But that offense has just been amazing, right? The defense still struggles, which makes Jaden Daniels even better for fantasy purposes. Is you want an offense that is good, but you want a defense with that offense that gives up points to make it so that team doesn't pace, right? We've seen it so many times in NFL, to where you have an offense, say like last week with Detroit's offense was scoring so much. Me having Dak, I loved it because I thought Dallas was going to play from behind. They were going to throw the ball a lot, which they ended up doing. They just didn't do much with it. And you get fantasy points out of it. Like, it's a great game script. But then at that time, like, Jared Goff threw a lot of touchdowns. Usually teams run the ball. They pace. They just try to kill the clock and make sure they get the win. And a lot of the time their fantasy points hurt because of it. But when you have a good offense with a bad defense that allows points, it's usually set up for success. So Jaden Daniels I love right now for cash. CJ Stroud is a tournament play for me. Looking at Green Bay's defense, they've allowed more pass than rush. Like, of course that's going to be a thing, but usually Green Bay's weakness has been for years how bad their rush defense has been. And yeah, they're still bad, but their pass defense with some injuries this season has been very, very bad. And when you have these two teams, right, we have a lot of good totals on the slate as well. But when you have these two teams to where we've seen Jordan Love in that offense have a lot of success. Like we've seen it, even when they lost to Minnesota, they still came back and they produced a lot of fantasy points all around. Now you get a Houston team that their offense has been solid, right? We haven't seen the same CJ Stroud that we did last season because their defense has been a little bit better. And they're better at controlling the clock offensively. But when they need to, they will bring that out. We've seen it in times to where that Houston offense is just fast. They get yards, they drive down the field, and they put a lot of pressure on the defenses. So I like CJ Stroud. Yes, he's priced up quite a bit for what he's produced this season, but I think this could be a really good back and forth game with two offenses that have a lot of high upside. Next on the list is Jared Goff at 6,500 against Minnesota. Minnesota's taken a lot of early leads on teams, and then they just try to beat you with their defense, and they've had success doing it, clearly. But with that, we've seen teams' offenses get a lot of passing yards on this defense, right? The offense has just been very efficient. They get leads. They're very good at controlling the clock and putting a lot of pressure on opposing offenses, which helps their defense, right? You need to drive the ball down the field. You need to get these big plays. And when they're blitzing, when you're expecting a big play, it usually doesn't work out in your favor. So I like Jared Goff in this one. The performance against Dallas, I think, speaks for itself. A big division game here in this one as well. Good total on it. So Jared Goff total. Jared Goff with a high total. I think a good matchup against a good defense is in a good spot for me. Brock Purdy is a tournament for me at 6,400 just because of what Kansas City's offense can do, right? And their defense hasn't been as good as it was last season. And their offense obviously lost Rashee Rice, but Juju and Travis Kelce stepped up with that. Some injuries on San Francisco's defense kind of worries me in this matchup. That's why I kind of like Brock Purdy in this, especially being at home too. They're one of the better home teams in the league of just putting up points. They're one team you shouldn't have to worry about putting up points at home. And even when you're getting a Super Bowl rematch, I love it here. Patrick Mahomes just has not done it enough for his price point, right? He's been, I don't think he's gotten 20 DraftKings points once this season. I think he's gotten to an 18, maybe a 19, but I think it's around 18 is the highest. Brock Purdy, we've seen some very peak performances out of him. So I'm liking Brock Purdy for, $600 cheaper on DraftKings in this matchup. It's got a very high total, so definitely want some exposure to that game in lineups. And then Kirk Cousins, 6,300 against Seattle. He's home. The offense has been clicking as of late. He's got a real connection with Darnell Mooney going. Drake London's been producing. Bijan had a really big game, so I like Atlanta's offense in this one. Seattle's defense, you could look at, the passing they've given up, but you got to look at the opponents too, right? You got to look at what quarterbacks have produced against them, who the quarterbacks have been. And in this one, I like Kirk Cousins against Seattle, right? Seattle passes the ball a lot. If they could be efficient versus Atlanta's defense, which has given up a lot, this could be a really, really good game for that. Sam Darnold, I mentioned the things I like about Jared Goff, and in contrarian to that, it's Sam Darnold too, right? He's been able to put up a lot of very efficient passes to not only Justin Jefferson, but other wide receivers on that team. The running back room is kind of banged up with Aaron Jones there. They just traded for Cam Akers, which concerns me of why you go and trade for someone like Cam Akers right now. So I'm assuming they're just trying to bulk up that running back room a little more. But yeah, a very high total in this one to where it's a division game at that. This is a huge, it could be a huge playoff game in the grand scheme of everything, right? Minnesota undefeated, Detroit 4-1. So yeah, I want exposure to both these quarterbacks in this matchup. And they're priced pretty good, right? 6,500, 6,200 doesn't kill your lineup building at that versus you go Jaden Daniels, who, yes, his ceilings are higher. What he could produce is higher, but you're paying up a lot more for it as well. So next on the list is Gino Smith against Atlanta. Atlanta's secondary has been getting beat, but the Seahawks just throw the ball so much. They really do. And if you look at the points per game that Geno Smith is producing, right, this is where I say the DraftKings prices, most of the time, they're bad. Geno Smith at 5,800 when producing, easily 3.5x on a point per game basis is great. Like, you want to target that. You want to target a guy that's going to get you, yeah, he might not get you 30 points and another quarterback does, and they got 10 more points. But when you consider the pay down from Jaden Daniels to Geno Smith of 1,800 in this matchup, to where Atlanta's defense has been very underperforming as of late, yeah, I want to target Seattle. That's going to pass the ball a lot. A very, very good wide receiver group, very, very good, to where Tyler Lockett gets disrespected because of how good DK Metcalf his ceiling is, JSN, what he's able to produce, and then you still have Tyler Lockett, who's just been a very solid, reliable receiver for them. So yeah, Gino Smith, I definitely want exposure to it. Daniel Jones, 5,400 against Philly. They're a home team. Look, the one thing I will give the Giants in Dayball this season is they are not afraid to throw the ball to receivers. We've seen that in the past to where they try to run the ball with Saquon. They go through their tight ends and try to get some work in their receivers, right? Like Wandell, and they try to get that work. But this season they're throwing the ball, right? When Neighbors was there and healthy and he was getting targets and Wandell was getting targets, we're like, oh, they're just throwing him Malik Neighbors, right? They're just trying to get him the ball. They drafted him. They're trying to get the most out of him. But then we saw Darius Slayton be included in this, and you go, no, they're not just trying to target their number one rookie wide receiver. They're trying to throw the ball. And we've seen Philly's defense, especially their secondary, give up a lot of good passes in this. So I'm willing to take that risk with Daniel Jones, and he still always has the rushing upside. That's one thing, Daniel Jones, he's not going to get, 100 rushing yards, but if you think he gets 50 yards, that's 5 points right there. That is hitting, basically 1 times value just off the rushing alone. And he has the rushing touchdown upside. It's not high, right? But anytime a quarterback isn't afraid to be mobile or has designated plays to be mobile, it makes it a benefit, right? And this price point, when you look at the other quarterbacks down here, Tyler Huntley, right, has the rushing upside as well. But there's not a lot of guys that are going to run for 30 yards a game, right? At least getting 3 points just off of rushing alone. So Daniel Jones in this matchup, I want to get right. Philly's offense can be very efficient and have been at times. The wide receivers getting healthy again for him. A good matchup, definitely for Philly. I want to get the other side of that in Daniel Jones in that matchup. Andy Dalton, we mentioned how bad Carolina's defense has been, but Washington's defense, I also mentioned, but Washington's defense has just been so bad in my opinion. And yeah, I want to get Andy Dalton at 5,200. Him and Deontay Johnson have had a really good connection. Jonathan Brooks is, I believe, going to be practicing and playing, so that just helps the running back room. That kind of helps Chuba Hubbard a little bit, makes a competition. But Andy Dalton's not afraid to throw the ball. He's not afraid to be risky and get those deep ball threats, get some very tight window throws. And we've seen him include other wide receivers other than Deontay Johnson. But 5,200, I think it's a really good price point for a offense that's been very efficient for Washington and a defense that gives up a lot of yards and points. I definitely wanted to target Carolina's offense as well. Tyler Huntley in this one, we've just seen Indy's defense give up a lot of yards. Their defense is kind of hurt defensive line wise. Their defense is hurt. Tyler Huntley's rushing upside is what makes him very desirable in this matchup, especially at 5,100. I think that's a very solid price for him in a good matchup against Indy, to where with Anthony Richardson likely to be the quarterback this week, the offense hasn't been as efficient with Jonathan Taylor being out. That definitely hurts too if he remains out. But Tyler Huntley and his rushing upside at 5,100 against Indy is very, very good. And you still have to remember, I believe Odell should be playing in this one. That means you get Jalen Waddle, Odell Beckham Jr., and Tyreek Hill as weapons to throw to. And maybe this is a week to where, against the secondary, where we see Tyreek Hill or Jalen Waddle, one of them get a big play, whether that be a big-time throw or a screen that they just take. I really like Tyler Huntley at 5,100 in this one. And then last but not least, I'm going to say Deshaun Watson yet again. He's continued to not really do anything in this league. They just traded away Amari Cooper to Josh Allen, right, and help his offense. But it's a very good matchup for him since he's pass defense has been very lackluster. We just saw Daniel Jones be able to move the ball against them. Deshaun Watson just needs to be able to be a franchise quarterback that he's being paid for. I don't love it, right? I don't want to definitely overexpose myself. That sounds... I don't want to get too much ownership of Cleveland's offense in this one just because of how underperforming Deshaun Watson and that pass game has been. Nick Chubb should be playing in this game. I don't see why he doesn't. So that's a huge boost. In my opinion, I don't think they're going to use him too much. I think they're going to start to ease him back in. They don't want to have him get hurt already. But I have to mention Cleveland's offense just because of what Cincinnati's defense has been. So hope you guys did enjoy the video. If you did, please leave a like and subscribe. We'll have the running back video going out tomorrow, as well as the showdown. So if you guys are interested in either one of those, check that out tomorrow, and I will see you guys in the next one.